Give it to Jesus. All right, y'all. As y'all can see on the screen, it's time for our question and answer portion. My name is Joe Gill. I will be the moderator of the conversation, and we will have our beloved Pastor Carter to answer some of these questions. So please make sure that you text in some of the questions, all right? Y'all got it? If you hadn't texted in, never mind. I ain't gonna do you like that. All right. Pastor, it was a really good word. Thank you for that. Y'all give it up for Pastor Carter for allowing God to use him in that moment. One of the questions that I started off seeing in that was submitted was, how do you protect yourself when you're steadily caught in the turbulence of others? How do you protect yourself?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, the Proverbs talks a lot about the company that we keep. And sometimes when you find yourself constantly in the turbulence and it's due to the consequence of others' decisions. Now, sometimes you can't control it, right? It's a family member, it's a brother, a sister, right? And so you're caught in that by family relationship, right? You've got to help navigate that. But some of those relationships are relationships by choice. Sometimes it is intended for God to use you to help each of us get better, right? Iron sharpens iron as one brother sharpens. So some relationships that go through turbulence, God has put you there, right, to help that person to grow through this, to be there as a support for that person, to be there as a source of wisdom for that person, right? We all need friendships. But at the same time, you also have to think through all of those situations too, because if it keeps happening over and over and over again, then it can be foolish to put yourself in harm's way. So you got to make real clear questions. You got to ask God, am I in this space? Is this turbulence for me to help this person navigate through this? Or does this person, are they committed to just living outside your will? They don't want to do it right. This is not going to honor you. And so you need to, at that point, maybe step away. Because sometimes you may get in the way of what God is trying to teach them. And so that's one way to navigate that.
That's good. That's good. So let's push it a little bit then, all right? When do you know when to walk away or how to stay, right? Like if you love someone, how do you recognize, all right, that's enough? Or how do you know, all right, let me stick around just a little bit longer because it could get better?
That's a good question, man. I don't know. In the scriptures, you find both, right?
Yeah.
You find cases where, in the Old Testament, where the prophet marries a woman and he stays with her because God tells him to stay with her.
That's true.
Right? You look at Jesus and the 12 disciples, right? You got Judas who was there the whole time. And Jesus never kicks Judas out.
Yeah.
Like if it was you and me, right? If we knew that one was coming, it'd been
See
like,
you later.
listen, he would have been the first. He wouldn't have got the DM to know where we were meeting, right? He would have always been left behind.
Right.
But for some reason, Jesus chooses to let him stay. So I think when it's if it's in a relationship, if it's abusive, I mean, automatically, right? Sometimes if it is an addiction, right, that can cause harm to you, them, and you've done what you can. So you got to figure it out for yourself. You got to pray, ask God for wisdom to be able to navigate through that, because the Bible never really gives you a limit on how much, except in an abusive situation. Matter of fact, when they asked Jesus, how many times should I forgive him?
70, yeah.
He said, how about 7? He said, no, 77 times. That's a lot of forgiveness, right? But this is the nature of our faith, that he doesn't give us clear boundaries in some spaces like this. You have to listen to the Holy Spirit. You got to listen to close friends around you, right? You got to ask God, and you just got to navigate through this in a way that you feel like, am I honoring God in this? I don't want to bail out anytime something just don't go my way. But I also got to use wisdom about how long is too long and what is the nature of this relationship in the first place.
That's good. So I'm from Dallas. Anybody here from Dallas? The Dallas people? Okay, all right. I'm from Dallas, specifically DeSoto. And I don't know if people from Dallas have recognized, but it's a lot of people moving to Dallas, right? Right? And one of the quickest things and the hardest things to do is to leave where you're from and come to a new city, start a new job, all that good stuff, right? So what are some ways that as a young adult you can get connected and find ways to be around good people, meet good people, all those kind of things? What would you say?
Man, I was 24. We were 24 when we moved here. We graduated in May. We got married in June. Moved here in July. So I mean, we were out. We were trying to. I grew up in Oklahoma City, and so I was trying to escape. I was like, listen, I got to find me a place to go, and so we ended up here. Loved it here, but I got to admit, when I first moved here, I was lonely, man. My frat brothers were gone. College life was gone. And my wife used to tease me, right? Because I'd just be hanging with her, right? I didn't have no friends, man. I had no friends, nobody. She'd be like, let's go, man. Leave me alone. And so I had to find spaces where I could connect with other people, right? Work, I had some great work friends, right? Trying to find that right connection in the work spot. Trying to find the right church, right? I think church builds up that community, right? So you can connect with people, get to know people. That was another space. Got involved with just sports and work, trying to find neutral ground, right? I think the key thing when you come to a new place, you just got to be open, right? You can't go to your room and watch Netflix all day and just look at social and think that's going to do it. Now, social media is a great way, too. There's several, there are tribes all throughout Dallas. Y'all know them already, where people are hanging out and they're brunching. So it's much easier now than it was then. But you just got to be willing to open yourself up. Try new stuff. Some people will move to Dallas, and they'll act like they're back home wherever their home is from, right? They still won't do nothing, right? They'll still be stuck in the spot. Listen, you got to try new stuff, go to new places, just open yourself up because God wants you to live, right? I mean, it's this whole part that he wants you to enjoy life. And part of that means just getting out, checking out new spots, meeting new friends, exploring. That's a good way to do it.
That's good. Make sure y'all still send in the questions. I'm thinking just as a young adult, I know I have made some decisions that I didn't know if it was me or God. In the moment, it felt like it was God, right? But it could have been me, right? How do you navigate through that decision, or how do you hear that voice of recognizing and how to let go of yourself, or is it God, and being truly centered in hearing his voice, right? Because I think some of the turbulence we cause on ourselves, right? So how do you recognize the voice that is God, or is that me?
Yeah. I think what each of us need, and one of the most important things you can do is you in your 20s as a young adult, is to just to cultivate a healthy prayer life and a healthy time with God. It just can be you can use the U version, right? They got all kinds of Bible reading plans on there. You can read one chapter a day, starting in Matthew, and just read your one chapter a day. And then after you read that chapter, just start writing about what you saw in that passage, what was God saying, and then pray. Yeah. I mean, this is a practice that I started in my 20s. And now don't get me wrong, I wish I did it every day, right? But there are some good seasons and bad seasons. I fell off for about 4 or 5 months, but I'm back on about 2 weeks ago. About 2 weeks ago, I got back on track. Praise the Lord, somebody. Come on now. I got back on track 2 weeks ago. And y'all, it has been the sweetest thing, right? It has been the sweetest thing because it just really sets the tone of my day. I'm reading through 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel because I'm doing a series on the life of David starting in October. So I've been reading through 1 Samuel one chapter at a time. And today was about David and Goliath, and it was about being fearless. And I don't know, I just think if you're going to hear from God, you've got to have an ongoing relationship with God. It's hard to hear from somebody when you only call you when they want something. I mean, ain't that God don't hear you. He hear you, right? But sometimes you can't hear him because you ain't talked to him, right? I mean, but if you can somehow cultivate a regular time of starting your day with God, right? I just think it's going to give you the intimacy with God so that when he speaks, you hear him, right? So that when you want to make a move, You've been praying about this for 3 months already. I mean, or for 2 weeks already, right? And so it's not out the blue. I mean, God works through he speaks to you by his word. He speaks to you through his people. He speaks to you through wise friendships, right? But when you're cultivating your prayer life and your time in your word, man, it's going to be clear. I had some goals in my 20s. And I really wanted to do some stuff. Like I wanted to go to seminary. Seminary is like law school for those that want to preach, right? And I remember saying, man, I want to go to seminary, and I'm going to just go quit my job. You know what I mean? I'm going to get me a job at Home Depot, and I'm just going to go to seminary, man. And I remember, man, that's what the Lord told me to do. Then I talked to my wife. My wife said, no, he didn't tell you to do that. I said, listen, you messing up my plan. This is what I want to do. I want to follow the Lord. She said, no, the Lord told me pay off some debt. I said, oh, okay. And so I say that to say that the Lord can speak to you in so many ways, right? You need some healthy friendships around you that can help you discern what is you, what is God, when is the right timing, right? Because it's easy to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to do this. But you haven't thought through all the stuff. And I'm not saying you got to have everything lined up, but sometimes it helps to have wise people to pray through it so you can be sure this is what God really wants me to do.
You know, Sunday, I listened to the message about the thorn. And it was, I mean, did y'all hear that message on Sunday too? That was, oh my goodness. And I think it kind of ties into this, right? Because what do you do to have joy even though you're letting things go, but that thorn just seems to keep rising up? You feel it, even though you're choosing joy, but you still feel the pain, right? What do you do when you're trying to choose joy, but you still feel this nagging pain that just seems like it won't go away? Whether it's an old relationship, whether it's an old thought, old job, something that happened that could have been pretty detrimental, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Man, we talked Sunday about Paul and this thorn in 2 Corinthians where he says, God has given me this thorn in the flesh. And it's Paul talking about these struggles that he's facing, even as he's trying to honor God. I got to just say that life can be really hard sometimes. I mean, on the real, like life can be hard. Like there can be some stuff in your life, and you can be born with a thorn. I mean, you can be born with some stuff in your family that you had to deal with your whole life, that has wounded you, that has influenced you, and you still living with that thing, right? There's stuff I grew up with. There's stuff I've had to deal with my dad and that relationship, and with just always being counted out. I mean, that's just part of my story, right? And so it's this thorn of insecurity that I always have had to battle. It is this thorn of maybe not being smart enough, or not being able enough, not having this, not talking articulate enough, not having all these things, right? And so this thorn, it sticks. You deal with these thorns throughout your life. And then because of the role I'm in, I deal with everybody else's thorns. So this afternoon, went to visit a church member who is passing away, and went to have last rites with the family, right? People that are dealing with cancer, people that are dealing with unemployment or broken relationships or sickness, right? Or cancer. And so I think that what we talked about tonight is that you got to know that life's going to be hard sometimes. But the way you have joy is understanding who you have with you. If you just take all this on yourself, you'll be depressed. You know what I'm talking about? You'll be drinking, right? You'll be looking for the happy hour instead of the water that we gave you downstairs. I mean, you will constantly be looking for sex. You'll be constantly looking for the next happy hour. You'll be constantly looking for the next vacation trip. You will be constantly trying to escape to try to bring you some joy. You'll be constantly looking at somebody else's feed, somebody else's life, right? But when your faith grows, you will begin to see how even the thorn doesn't have to steal your joy. That you can see even through the difficulty that God is still working. That even through the rejection, that just because you rejected me doesn't mean that one rejection labels my life. Just because that didn't work out, and so you begin to get beyond the thorns are going to come, they're going to happen. But notice what that text says. The text says that God gave him the thorn to keep him humble. And sometimes we got to go through some stuff to keep us grounded. Because when we get too much, we don't even come to church. You know, we gone, like we off. You know what I mean? We neglect him. But sometimes he gives us those thorns so that we can stay grounded, so we can depend on him, so we can be aware of our own humanity and our own struggles. But we have to choose joy because of who we know we're serving. And what God's going to do, man, he going to do something great through it. And we have to keep believing that and knowing that.
Good. That's good. I know during this pandemic, some of us have prayed probably more than we have in years, right? Because we be busy.
Listen.
Sometimes you don't got to. I'll pray tonight, and then you just don't, right? You go to bed. You're tired. We're gonna wrap it up, but let's leave them with this, Pastor. Is there anything that you like, any devotionals, any books, any knowledge, any literature that you can kind of give to somebody that want to get connected again, or just looking for something to start today? Getting back in their word.
Listen, man, you can join me. Like I told you, I started 1 Samuel about 2 weeks ago. It's 1 and 2 Samuel. It's a great place. And then we're going to start a sermon series in October. You can get ahead. You can start reading one chapter a day, and it's real. I mean, it's just, it's a narrative. So it's a story, right? So you can really get into it and begin to get a sense of what God is doing, how he's working. It's a fascinating journey. So if you want to just start somewhere, I can recommend books, but I love to recommend the Bible, right? And so it's a great place to start. You can start with 1 Samuel and just read one chapter a day. Read one chapter a day, kind of journal about what you see that's going on there, right? And then pray just for yourself and for that focus that day, right? I just want to encourage you to start there, and just you can let me know how it goes with you. But this has been a journey. I've really enjoyed it because you're seeing God at work in two really big characters' life. One Saul, and then the other one is David. So check it out. And that's a good place to start. But I want y'all to know how much we love you guys. Young adults are so incredibly important to our church, man. I really want y'all to know that. Know that we love you guys, that we're thankful for you guys. We believe in you guys, right? This Concord is yours. And so I'm just incredibly excited about tonight and all that lies ahead. But I want y'all to know tonight it's really about us helping you to know, not only get connected to God, but also know how important you are to the Concord Church family. So come on and give God praise one more time tonimore
Amen.
Thank you, Joe, man. I appreciate you, sir.
Man, you know,
Thank
anytime,
you, man.
Pastor.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, yeah. Can we give Pastor one more hand clap, please?